right, guys, I'm going to try to make this video a lot quicker, shorter, I should say, than process one. We're in process two already getting there. And so this past week, you guys did your homework and you've met for your groups, and you guys have all talked about kind of that one thing that you're really going to focus on working. If you noticed in those worksheets from last week, we all have quite a few problems that we're going to work on, but we're working on one right now, one at a time, right? And so that's like the symptom. That's like the thing that you aren't liking, what that you're doing, your behavior. So this week we're going to look at like what's going on behind it. That's really what this is going to kind of be, a self-discovery of why do I do this, right? That Romans 7:15, it says, Paul says, I do not understand my own actions, for I do not do what I want, right? But I do the very thing that I hate. And again, that's pretty much all of us. So the biggest thing that I want you to get from this, the goal, is that we need to understand and identify the origin, or the why. Why am I doing that thing? Why? Why do I continue to isolate myself? Why do I continue to build up this anxiety so bad? Why am I vacuuming my house 3 times a day? Like, why, right? So we're going to kind of unmask that and look at that. And majority of the reason for any symptom, any coping mechanism, which is really what this is behind it will be this idea to anesthetize, right? To numb, or we'll say to push back those unwanted thoughts, feelings, and memories. We're just trying to temporarily keep stuff. I know that when I want to get out of church, or I isolate, I talk to the ladies about this, it's because I'm feeling something, and if someone asks me, because I wear my emotions on my face easily, if they say what's wrong, I'm gonna have a meltdown, and then I'm gonna have to bring it to the surface, and then people are gonna find out that I'm a hot mess. So rather than really getting out whatever I'm dealing with, or what's coming up, I'd rather isolate, right? It pushes it away. It gives me that temporary relief. Cleaning, overworking, it makes you not have to think about it. It makes you not have to think about what you really need to think about, okay? So 80% of mental health being sought after when people come in, it comes down to 80% of them are being seen for some reason of fear, some type of fear. Anxiety, obviously. Billions of dollars a year are going into pharmaceuticals and medical treatment for anxiety. And anxiety is just this vague feeling. It comes from fear. Sometimes we don't even know what it's about. We're going to dig into it and find out why. What is going on? Why am I having this feeling? The majority of it is a fear of something, right? Something that we have made up in our mind, whether it's actual or perceived. It's existing in our lives, and it's causing some issues. And us just trying to avoid it, putting these things up, walls up around it, it's not going to really help you to work through it. You're not coping appropriately sometimes, right? Let's just be honest, okay? And if we want God to use us truly, because I do hear people say, well, I mean, my mechanism is better than this. Like, I don't, and that's what I thought. I didn't drink anymore, or I didn't use substances anymore, but I was shut down from the world, and I was just this kind of, I just wanted to keep myself away from people. And that's not good, because God can't use me like that. He cannot use a wounded spirit, okay? So we got to fix this. We got to fix it. All right, so we're going to stop here right now. I want you guys to work on the first couple questions. It's the first part of the self-evaluation 2. It's going to be pain avoidance. I only think it's 3 questions. We're at 4 minutes now, so just pause the video here and then come back when you guys are done. All right, let's wrap it up. We're going to wrap up process 2. We're going to talk about the brain. It may take a little longer than the previous part of this video because there's a lot to it, and I want to make sure everybody understands what's going on here. So what's going on in the brain, if we're trying to escape some sort of a fear or some sort of memory that we don't want to really remember, suppression, whatever those coping mechanisms are, what's going on in the brain? I'm going to bring you into science, because my personal belief is that God made this amazing computer. It is so, I will geek out on you guys about all the things that our brain can do and it's capable of, and I think we all understand that. But he's created this thing, and usually in cases of addiction, we see this area of the brain called the limbic system really being affected by that. So we're just first, before we get into the limbic system, let's just talk about early childhood development. All right. So we're going to kind of just discuss what's going on like the first few years of life, and as we age. Okay. So like the most brain development occurs like the first 2 to 3 years of life. What that means is that this part of your brain, these little nerves, these neurons are firing off in here, and they're taking in all of this information, y'all. Your brain experiences everything. Your brain is the experiencer of your life. It experiences feelings. It experiences light, sound, everything, feeling, pain. It is all perceived in this little 5-pound organ up here in your head. Right? So when you're growing up and you're looking around as a young baby, child, whatever you want to imagine yourself at the age of around 2, everything you're looking at, your brain is taking in the environment, taking in the input, if you will, and it's going to, just like a regular computer, it's going to interpret what's going on, and it's going to keep it locked up in this subconscious part of your brain called the limbic system. It's going to make memories, and it's going to help you as an individual interpret what world you live in. What do I mean by that? I mean this. Let's look at it in what we're talking about addiction. We're going to talk about safe versus unsafe environments. Okay, so if I'm a young baby, 9 months, and I'm hungry, I'm going to cry. Right? I'm going to wah, 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 or whatever the baby does at 9 months old. And I'm sending a signal out in my brain. I'm sending it into my environment. I am not happy. I am hungry. And my mother comes and picks me up, or my father comes and picks me up and feeds me because it's time to eat, or they make me something to eat. And a signal at that point would come back, feeds me dopamine. And it's like, hey, you're good. You're happy. You were taken care of. Somebody helped to satisfy what you needed. Okay? I poop my pants, or I pee my pants. I got my diaper on. It's wet. It's miserable. I cry. I'm sending out a signal into my environment, and I'm saying, help me. I need help. And my mother changes me. My father changes me. Whoever's watching me changes me. And the signal comes back and says, somebody's helping you. You're taken care of, right? And this goes on, we know, on a daily basis, 24 hours a day for these first important years of our life. And while this is happening, we as parents are just trying to take care of our child, but their brain connection is interpreting what kind of a world they live in. And when I'm getting that input back, that somebody else is helping I'm getting gratification from others, right? My world is safe. I can grow. I can become confident as I grow. I can learn my identity when I get into school years. I can, my focus should be better based off of these findings because I know who I am, my environment's safe. And if you have this consistently throughout childhood and into young adulthood, those people tend to do good and deal good, even if they're introduced to substances or pornography or any of the things that you're here for, because they've grown and they've kind of interpreted the world and it's allowed them to grow and handle challenges. Okay, the majority of people in dysfunctional families don't work like this. So we're going to go to the flip side of safety. Okay, if I am a baby and I cry out and it's not met, if I hurt myself and nobody really cares, or I'm told, get over it, I'm putting out signals for help and nothing's coming back. If I am neglected and I'm continuing to voice and I'm sending signals out, right? And all my environmental information coming back into my brain is empty, is not meeting my needs as a child, my brain is going to make these subconscious memories, and it is going to tell baby Naomi at that time in that unstable life, you are not safe. This world is not safe. You will not be able to trust people. You have to take care of yourself. And so what we see is these people start to, it's going to create a very stressful world. And these young children live in this fight or flight mode. And when you're in fight or flight, when you're constantly in survival mode, you won't grow. And so you see there will be these constant problems because they're constantly trying to find a way to, your limbic system doesn't like the pain. It wants to release dopamine, and dopamine is like our happy, it's this happy time stuff. Dopamine is, we all get it every day. Dopamine is this thing that's released every day. If I say, hey, good job, and you feel good, right? Dopamine's released, and it's going to make you want to do whatever you did again. It's a reward thing. And so your brain wants it. Your limbic system wants it. And if you're constantly running around and you're in this fight or flight mode, it's going to say, I need something to make me feel good. And so you're going to have to find these self-gratifying, I'm going to have to do it myself. And young children, young adults, as we grow older, will find ways to quickly help that system, help ourselves, right? By releasing that dopamine. And of course, we know usually it has to do with some sort of addiction. It's maybe substance or something to satisfy, something with pleasure, something that makes them feel good. Why? Because the rest of the world and how they've interpreted it's not giving them that, okay? And so that's what we can see. We see this area in the limbic system. It's associated. It doesn't want the fear and the pain. It wants to fix it. It's like, let's reward. I'm a reward system. And so it will start to help you try to feel better. And again, it is associated with that survival mode. And it's where you want to really, just to feel normal, you start to crave these things. You start to find this, I want this. I want this more. Why? Because I want to feel normal. This is a normal feeling. And so we see that a lot as when we unleash stuff. And maybe even as I'm talking, some of you guys, it may not have been in the first few years of your life, but something happened at some point between when you were born and now, continuously enough for you to say, yes, right? I know. And a lot of times we see in mental health and those people with severe psychiatric issues, schizophrenia, bipolar, psychotic episodes, things like that, that something has happened preteen, childhood, and it was something very traumatic, or they just had over and over and over again these chronic, long-term, unsafe conditions, okay, that have made them do that. Now, for us adults that are in this, right, we still are learning in your young adulthood, right? And so it's when things happen, or there may be some lie, and we'll get into that later. If you're not relating to this, there may be something that has happened subconsciously that you've told yourself. And as we get into adulthood, we start to see that these little things, although it may not have been such a traumatic childhood, something that we've told ourselves subconsciously is kind of running this system now. And it's kind of getting into this limbic system and allowing this limbic system to want things that we really don't want, right? Okay, so if we didn't know that, if we don't know that this is going on in our brain, we just think we're really messed up and we're screwed up and we're trying to figure out why is this happening. This is the way we were made. It was made for God's glory. It was made, and I gave an example to some of those that facilitated. Let's just God said, go forward and multiply, right? He wanted the world to multiply. Well, having kids it can really stink sometimes, and it's hard work. And so I personally believe that if we had children and we didn't have this limbic system, there wouldn't be a lot of kids around. Honestly, because it's not fun all the time. But the reward is when your kids come, right? Or you look at the baby and they've got the big eyes and they're just a beautiful thing, and they look and we just look at this little being and it just starts to release dopamine. And then as they get older, when they get to be more of a pain and they come up and they tell you what, they say, I love you, Mom, or I made this for you for Mother's Day, or I made this for you, Dad, for Father's Day. It releases dopamine in our system and it makes us feel good and we feel proud and we're like, all right, I can do this again. It's just an example. Those are just examples, this system drives us. It's your motivational point. God made it to keep us progressing, to keep us growing, to want to do things. But we know now that we can really put a damper on things. And of course, the devil is going to capitalize on any weakness that he can find in our systems. And so that's where we see this occurring in there. So the areas, I said again, that the limbic system drives on is food, sex, and safety. And if you think about your problem and what you're dealing with, it's going to have to do with one of those things. That behavior you're doing is for another reason, and most likely it primarily may be due to something in one of these areas. That's where, at least your addiction may be. That's where we see it. We see it in these areas. And so what it's doing, again, it's temporarily giving you, when we're feeding this with our addiction, when we're giving into our thing that we're doing, that one thing that you want to work on, it is releasing dopamine in this system, and it's going to temporarily let you feel safe, feel good. But the problem is that it's temporary and it goes away. And then you have your reality to look at, and you don't want to look at it. Maybe you're shamed, maybe you feel guilty, and so you find that you're going to do it again and again, or something similar, to feed that area, because you just really don't want to deal with what you're dealing with. And then you can see the spiraling, and that's when you see people really lose control. Okay, so we're going to stop there. That was a bit longer, but that's the system. So I want you to think about this before you do the remainder of the questions. I want you to think about what the Bible says about family. What does it say, or not only what the Bible says about family, but I want you to think of families that you know. Like, I want you to think about families. If you had the ideal family, and write this on the back of your notes, and I know it has it for you guys to write on in your book, but the ideal family, if you were to look at whether it's a TV family or a real family, what was so ideal about it? You know, like if you're watching, I don't know, y'all remember Different Strokes? That was my show. You had the two kids, Arnold and Willis, that got adopted, right? And then they had the rich dad, and Kimberly was a sister. Like that was a cool family. Why? Because it was diverse. I like the diversity. So okay, I don't want to go too off track. I want you guys to think about that. Think about what ideal family you know of in real life or TV, and kind of write down what the attributes are of that. Write that on the back, and then you can go ahead and start on the rest of this. I want you guys to finish up your homework and have a blessed week. And remember that we're not going to let this system win. We're going to get this thing back on track, and we're going to use our system the way God created it to be used. All right, y'all. God bless.